Assalamu alaikum. I hope you guys are all doing well. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about why I would never travel to the UAE. This includes areas like Dubai, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, Bahrain. I don't know all the names, but mostly the Gulf area I will not travel to. There are three reasons why I would never travel to the UAE. One of them would be its treatment of migrant workers. Migrant workers are people who in their place of origins they do not have sufficient income, so they really expect to earn a better stable living in some of these countries. So Philippines, Pakistan, in India, you'll see them going to these foreign countries, which would be like the UAE and around the surrounding areas. They would go there for expecting of a better life. When they go there, it is definitely not at all perfect.
The sanitary facilities are usually communal, with toilets and showers shared by a large number of residents, often in an inadequate state of repair. There is almost no shower. The solution for many is to use a bucket. The kitchen is communal, visibly dirty and totally out of line with the quality standards of other countries, with several workers crowded into spaces that are normally built by themselves. The most frightening thing is that even the pipes and ventilation spaces were built by the workers, without supervision by the responsible bodies. Although many of these accommodations offer air conditioning due to the high temperatures in the region, maintenance is not always adequate, affecting the workers' quality of life. In other words, it's almost inhumane. And so the salaries, which at first seemed like a promise for the future, turn out to be insufficient to cover expenses and send money home.
So the second reason of why I would never travel to the UAE is because of the normalization ties with Israel. It started off with their ties with Egypt, moved on to Jordan, moved on to UAE and Bahrain, and then it moved into Morocco and Sudan. So Israel has all of these connections and ties with these Muslim countries. All of these ties and why did these ties form? So the reason why they ended up coming together and forming ties is because they felt a safety threat they felt like unsafe from Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood, so they decided that they wanted to stay away from these Islamic groups and they wanted to create safety bonds, I guess, with each other, and so that's why they became ties with one another.
Because this peace will eventually expand to include other Arab states, and ultimately it can end the Arab-Israeli conflict once and for all.
Embassies opened, direct flights to and from Israel were established. In 2022, almost 1 million passengers flew between the United Arab Emirates and Tel Aviv. Trade increased between the two countries. So, economic benefits and the promise to have the US as an ally, the deal seemed to work for all parties involved.
This is the trajectory of how this normalization to Israel or for Israel happened. Again, there's not really too much to expand here, is that this is the reason why I don't want to travel to the UAE. The last one is kind of like jumbled into, they like to put their hands where money is. And they like to spend money on bad things, but they also like to steal money, basically. The UAE landed from a jet, they touched down in Jabba, which is in the south of Sudan, and they collected hundreds of pounds of illicit gold. So while genocide is happening, they're landing, taking gold, and they move their jet 90 minutes back home to UAE. And again, it vanishes in the gold market.
It says that in 2022, at least 435 tons of gold were smuggled out of Africa. 435 tons. That's more than 1 ton of gold every day. Do you know how much 435 tons of gold are worth? about $31 billion at today's rates. It's enough to wipe out the national debt of some of these African countries, but that much gold was illegally smuggled out of the continent in 2022. Where was it smuggled to? Reports say that the lion's share of the gold, about 47% of it, made its way to the United Arab Emirates, where it was reprocessed, rebranded, and reintroduced into the global gold supply. Our next report has the details.
In 2022, about 435 tons of gold were smuggled out of Africa. That is gold worth about $35 billion today. Smuggled gold means no taxes or tariffs, so it doesn't benefit the African nation's development. Most of the smuggled gold came from artisanal mining, where people mine the gold instead of corporations. Now you could think artisanal mining sounds like a good thing. A way for the average person to benefit from a nation's resources. But it's not that ideal. These are small-scale, unregulated mines prone to accidents and deaths, and you also have artisanal mines operated by militant groups. They enslave innocents, force them to work in the artisanal gold mines. Then they sell the gold to buy weapons, and use those weapons to perpetuate the vicious cycle.
When I'm talking about the corruption that's happened in Sudan, this is something that is obviously not liked. Like, you're dealing with a genocide. What's happening is that the UAE is putting their hands involved with the RSF, and the RSF is looting livestock. So they're literally taking livestock away, and they're taking cattle, sheep, goats. Large part of their poultry sector is looted. And this is having to do with the UAE being involved with depletion of resources in Sudan. So from all of this, you can see how angry I am about how the UAE has operated for way too long, and the corruption that does happen in the remaining Gulf regions. Now, I do want to say this is a reflection on where we should travel and where we should do hijrah. I think this is a really good way to talk about how we in the West travel and contemplate hijrah. So when it comes to traveling, I am very, very, very picky of where I travel. I know that many of these injustices exist in the world, so being aware of world and political issues is very, very important, because we are ultimately, as travelers, giving money to these countries. And so it's really important to have a critical lens on what's actually happening. And number two is that it's really important to travel with purpose. I personally only travel if it is to meet another person in another country for the sake of dawah. So I have gone to Pakistan twice to meet with my in-laws, to see my husband's family, to give if we can give in that country, whether that's to meet a scholar, a sheikh, a student of knowledge. To meet for the sake of Allah is very, very important in my worldview. Being analytical, because the Prophet ﷺ, these traveling was for purpose, and I think we've lost that, meaning that we can, I know there's ayahs that we can travel to see Allah's creation, I understand that, but it has to have a tie towards an ummah. It has to be tied to ummah-centric goals, in my opinion. Moving on into like the topic of hijrah in Dubai and places like Kuwait and Oman and things like that, like, it just blows my mind that people think this is hijrah, where there's so much injustices, and critically analyzing, like, it's bad, it's real bad. And then in terms of our ideas of comforts and really like blinding us of the reality. So I will go. I just wanted to come on here and talk about this, because a lot of the time Muslims will shame other Muslims for oh, this influencer did this, or she's showing too much hair and this and that, and like, we critically analyze the ummah so much, putting brother to brother, sister to sister, brother and sister, you know, criticizing a lot. But we don't actually criticize states. We don't criticize these countries like Saudi Arabia. We don't criticize. We don't dare to criticize, and have a critical lens, and to to judge countries. Like, why can't we do that? Anyways, assalamu alaikum.